I'm pleased to be joined by Representative Tristan Rader. He is the Democratic representative for District 13. That is the west side of Cleveland as it extends into Lakewood. Representative, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Glad to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. We know you're very busy. This has turned into a very partisan issue, whether we're talking at the federal level, and let's be honest, that's where SNAP is funded. This is a federal program, but it's now trickling down to the states. The states are looking at whether or not they need to move in and find some way to temporarily fund SNAP. But when we get down to it, this is about people potentially going hungry because they're not getting their benefits starting November 1st. We're talking low-income families, veterans, disabled, elderly. This is a big deadline starting on Saturday.
Yeah, and remember, the food assistance program is the majority elderly, it's majority children and families with children, and there's also a work requirement. So these are working people that are not getting their needs met through the hours they're getting at work or maybe low wages. And the food assistance program has really stopped 1.4 million people in the state of Ohio from hunger, from going hungry, and that's all under threat right now. November 1st rolls around, that's this Saturday. There's going to be up to 1.4 million people in the state that are going to have to figure out another way to eat.
What is the fix here at the state level? There's a problem. We've seen other states, Louisiana comes to mind, where they've said, okay, we're going to step up, and even though the federal government can't get their act together, we're going to go ahead and fund this and hopefully get that money back. Now, there seems to be some pushback from the administration, the Trump administration, that no, there is no guarantee if Ohio puts up, let's say, $100 million for the month of November, December for SNAP recipients. There's no guarantee the state is going to get that money back.
So there's two avenues that we've approached this through. One is we have a bill that would just fund the program out of our rainy day fund. We've got a nearly $4 billion rainy day fund in the state of Ohio. And I think you're absolutely right, by the way. The federal government needs to act, and they should act now, and they should feed people while the government is still shut down. And they have the funds to do it. Historically, they have used those contingency funds, the USDA, to make sure these programs have been funded. But our primary concern are the people that are in our districts that will go hungry if we don't act. And inaction at the federal level is no excuse to have inaction at the state level. And we have a very big rainy day fund. It's $4 billion. If we just tap 100 million of that, a few percentage of that, we can ease the burden for those people that would be most impacted by this government shutdown and their food stamps being shut off.
It's interesting you bring that up. I did have a conversation today with the executive director. Actually, he's the deputy director of media relations, Dan Tierney, with the Ohio governor's office. And he said there's a problem with this idea of the rainy day fund. And I want to read his words exactly. He said the rainy day fund is a colloquial name for the budget stabilization fund. The sole purpose of the Budget Stabilization Fund is to support previously enacted budget if state revenue decreases in an economic downturn. The fund may be accessed only if the Ohio General Assembly enacts legislations to do so. It is very common for activists and special interests to take the nickname of the Budget Stabilization Fund and literally transport it for rainy day funds, and that's not what the letter of the law says rainy day funds are for, they are for legislation that's already been passed. Your response that it's not as simple as running to the quote-unquote rainy day fund.
We could absolutely do it. In fact, this governor had absolutely no problem signing a budget into law that gave $600 million to the Cleveland Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, out of what should have been funds that would go to normal everyday Ohioans that their funds had been held by the state. There's no reason statutorily in the law that the state legislature, us, couldn't go and tap that rainy day fund and use that money to feed hungry families. I don't think starving children really care where that money comes from. And we know we have this budget stabilization fund, which is called the RFD, the rainy day fund, in there sitting to be tapped and used. And we can use it and we should use it. And we have a bill that would do exactly that. So to kind of take us around this, using bureaucracy, using red tape, they have absolutely no problem cutting through that red tape when they want to give hundreds of millions of dollars to billionaires. But for some reason, it's really hard to get through a little bit of red tape in order to feed hungry families. I just find that that really upsets me, frankly.
So, as a Democrat, who's at fault here? You're a Democrat representative. I'm assuming you're going to point at the House
Nope.
leadership, the Republicans.
I'm not pointing at anybody except ourselves. You know, we are the state legislature. We have the ability to tap this fund and to feed hungry people. That is our locus of control, right? We're in charge of the budget of the state of Ohio. We have the ability to tap this money, to use it to feed hungry families while the federal government's figuring its stuff out. That's what I'm advocating for. And I'm advocating also for the governor to call for a state of emergency so that we can more easily move this money and move this program faster. Because this is an emergency for a lot of families, a lot of our neighbors, a lot of working people in my district.
Aside from legislation, what are you advising your
Sure.
people in your district? What are you advising people to do? Because we can't wait for legislation that can take, let's be honest, weeks, if not months.
Sure, sure, sure. I think especially if you're hurting right now, and again, there's lots and lots of people right here in Cuyahoga County that receive food assistance. In fact, 26.7% of children in the county are food insecure, and almost 200,000, 190,000 families are receiving food assistance in the county. I want to let them know the food bank is trying to ramp up, right? We know that for every one meal the food banks provide, the food assistance program actually provides 9 meals. So it's really hard for them to scale to that need, but they're still there and they're open. And we're highly advising people to call 411, figure out where their nearest food pantry is. The food bank's going to ramp up and have these pantries open longer hours, and they're scrambling to find resources to get more food into those food pantries so that people can be fed through the holiday season, right? This is the holidays coming up here too. And as the weather kind of gets worse, people tend to stay closer to home, and it becomes even harder to access resources in neighborhoods, especially with lacks of transportation, things like that. So we want to make sure that everybody knows the food bank is a resource. And if you have food assistance, please make sure that you continue to renew your paperwork. So you might have got something in the mail that said, please update your profile, please submit your new whatever paperwork they're asking for. We got to make sure that people they're following up with that. Even though your food stamps are turned off, you still are in the program. And once the food assistance program kicks back on and the government opens up, or we get some aid from the state, we want to make sure that you're current in the program so that there's not a gap once the program starts again.
Very good point. Representative, we certainly appreciate the time today. The clock is ticking, and every second it gets a little bit louder. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much. Important issue.
All right, take care.